So there's a headline that keeps coming back. SpaceX is reportedly preparing for a 2026 IPO, and that immediately creates two reactions. One, this could be the biggest IPO of our lifetime. Second, at that price, is there any upside left? So I'm not here to hype SpaceX, and neither I am going to call it a clickbait, but I will break it down in detail. So, like what SpaceX actually do, and where the money really come from, and why Starlink matter more than rocket, and finally whether buying at IPO makes sense or waiting is a smarter move. Most people think most people still think of SpaceX as a rocket company that's outdated. So today SpaceX is really a three businesses under one roof. First is launch services, like example SpaceX Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, and they also do NASA Crew, SpaceX NASA Crew to advance biomedical materials and physical sciences, and they pretty much do cargo missions, North Rope, and secondly, secondly they do Starlink satellite internet, and third is their long-term R&D, mainly Starship, which is expensive and not yet commercial cash engine. From a revenue perspective, Starlink is now the company. Launch services are important, but Starlink is the growth engine. Let's talk real numbers. So SpaceX is roughly generating 15 to 18 billion dollar in annual revenue heading to next year, and you can see that roughly around how much of it is coming from Starlink. So you can see 79% from this data, and around 70% from this data. You can you can expect like on an average 60% of that comes from Starlink, and Starlink has grown from uh, check the point in the ending 2022 1 million. So it grown from 1 million user from ending 2022 to over almost 7 million users in August 2025, and by late 2025 it it is 8 million. So that is not normal growth, that's infrastructure scale adoption. And for the launch revenue, 4 billions. Okay, so like you can estimate launch revenue around 4 to 5 billion dollar annually. Of course SpaceX is dominating about that, and also this also means SpaceX is no longer dependent on government contract to survive. So let's make the bullish case honestly. Starlink is not just for internet for remote villages. It's like becoming global connectivity infrastructure. Like it can be used many places, airlines, ships, government, defense, disasters. Like they gave free access to Iran recently, and this is not restricted only for the remote villages. And unlike traditional telecom, Starlink also owns satellites, a launch system, network terminals. The level of vertical integration is very rare. And from an investor standpoint, Starlink looks less like an aerospace company and more like highly margin global ISP that happens to use space. SpaceX launched more rockets than the rest of the world combined. They reuse boosters. They can undercut competitors on price and still make money. There are many competitors like Blue Origin, Rocket Lab. So this is where conversation gets uncomfortable. Let's say SpaceX IPO is at $1 trillion. It's 1.5, but let's take $1 trillion. And if I take SpaceX revenue as $15 billion, so that will be almost like 60 plus times sales you are looking at. 65x, and that is extreme even for tech. That means IPO price already assumes Starlink's keep scale rapidly. Even margin is expanding significantly. And even though there are many competitions, even though there are competitors, and it doesn't destroy pricing, and Starlink eventually works, you can see. Like, even if any of those slow down, the stock doesn't crash because SpaceX bad. It drops because expectations were too high. So this is where legendary companies can still become mediocre investment. So let's see what history tells us. So I will show you IPO research from various academics, like first one Jay Ritter. He's director of IPO initiative and professor emeritus of University of Florida, Warrington College of Business, also known as Mr. IPO. And he has studied in addition to asset pricing, valuation and all. Hmm. So what Jay Ritter says, he is offering on basis of historical perspective, like at an 800 billion valuation with 15 billion revenue, sorry. So SpaceX with price to price sale ratio 51.6. So what we did is 65x, rough figure. So on this historical figure is 51.6, and you can see since 1980 only 13 US companies with 100 million plus revenue went public with the sales ratio of 40, above 40, and the result, average stock price declined over the next 3 years and underperform market by 38% for offer price buyers, by 62% underperform for the buyers at first closing price. And what Ritter concluded that, his words, SpaceX might be a great company, but being a great company does not necessarily mean that the stock will be a good investment. Hmm. Hmm. Uh, Companies that go public at a very high revenue multiples often underperform for years, even if the business is strong. That's what Jay said. Why? Because early investors already captured the exponential phase. So public investors are paying for maturity. That doesn't mean SpaceX will fail. It means returns may be slower than people expect, and you cannot analyze SpaceX without talking about Elon Musk, once in a generational gemstone. He's also unpredictable, and Musk controls voting power, drives vision, also creates volatility with his behavior. Some investors are fine with that, others aren't. This doesn't make SpaceX worse, but it does make stock more emotional. And so, should you invest at IPO? Here's the honest answer, I think. If you're looking at quick upside or IP pop or guaranteed returns, this is probably not for you then. And if you are looking for 10 to 20 years hold and you believe in Starlink as infrastructure and you have high willingness, then SpaceX could be reasonable long-term position at the right size for you. Not a YOLO, not a core portfolio, just a conviction bet. So, like, here are three approaches that can make more sense than buying it blindly. One, wait for public financials and quarterly reports will tell us everything is Starlink high today. Second, dollar cost average after listing. Let the hype cool down. Three, mm, position sizing. Like treat SpaceX like early Tesla, small, patient, and mentally written off for years. So SpaceX will definitely change the world, certainly. That doesn't mean it will immediately change your portfolio. The best investors separate company quality from enterprise. And no doubt, SpaceX is extraordinary company, but the IPO price will decide whether it's an extraordinary investment. That's it. If you're bullish, bearish, or undecided, drop your take below. I will read everything. And if you want to follow up, let me know. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.